Okay, I spent more time talking about the process of getting through Mary. I'm going to try to do the same thing, but much more quickly. The main point is we talked about getting started, how you find notes on the keyboard, how you place your hand. I talked a little bit more about how some of these concepts are referenced on this page. They will also appear in the first 20 pages of your book with some diagrams, so that'll be good reinforcement. And I talked about starting with numbers, assuming you don't know the letter names of the keys. By starting with numbers, you can actually get started playing. And then we jumped down, and I talked about doing the same thing, but thinking. It's a mental thing, thinking of letters. Then we did two other songs. We didn't really complete Saints, and I often don't complete that in this little intro period in the very beginning of the class, because we're going to have this again later in the term. So that being said, starting with Mary, what are the absolute basic things you need to know so you can play if you have not yet played? For many of you, you've already done this, but if you haven't, let's just kind of go over this. And for those of you that have, if you're new to this, you can just kind of review. You need to know what the notes are, where your hand needs to be. We use the musical alphabet A, B, C, D, E, F, G. In some countries, they use different systems, either a number system or a solfege system. We use a letter system. When people learn, they usually start on piano with C. Some instruments, that's not where they start. To find a C, you find a group of 2 black notes. There's groups of 2, 3, 2, 3. I talk about this on these sheets. Where we find a group of 2, that is our landmark, a C is on the left. Where we find 3, an F is on the left. I talked more about that before. It's summarized on the sheet. I sent you a PowerPoint that has a link to a video talking about that I made a long time ago. Now, once we have one note, we can find others. I've talked about that more. For now, we're going to be dealing with 5 notes. Thumb is 1, pinky is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm trying to be abridged and keep moving here. If you put your thumb on a C and cover one note with each finger, you're in a position where you can get started. We call that the C position or the C5 finger position. All right. Once again, we're a little bit abridged now. We're looking at Mary. We talked about how there's numbers that represent the fingers. There's also vertical lines. Those are bar lines. They represent that. We will have them in the book. And when we see them, we're not really going to stop. However, when you're learning something and it's new, you may need to stop to figure things out. So I'm going to go to that first line, and by placing my hand in the C position, my thumb is on C. My 3 finger happens to be on an E. Now, when you first do this, it's not likely to be as steady and smooth as that. But you would work through this. If it would be hard, you would use a smaller section. You might go slower. You would repeat. If you take a smaller section, you'd repeat a little bit and then try to add more. I did talk quite a bit more about that on previous links. If you added and didn't see that, you can either review them or email me. We'll talk about that. The second line is almost like the first line. At the end, you play your thumb and you hold it. I put some little dashes there. That just is going to remind you to hold it out. This is not music notation. This is just like a little roadmap to help you remember what I'm showing you. Now, we did more with that before, and then we moved below, same song, but letters, and I talked about you're going to think differently now. Your hand's going to go in the same position. It might be here or here. As long as your thumb is on a C, whichever is more comfortable. The second version has letters with circles Those are the chords. We're going to talk about the chords today. We're going to get started on that. And we ignored them last time. We're going to ignore them right now, but we're going to then be talking about them. That's going to represent what our left hand is doing to fill this out, to make it sound fuller. So you're going to play the same thing, but you're going to think differently. I don't have a way to demonstrate how your brain works differently, but I would encourage you to focus on trying to think the E. We talked more about finding notes last class and a little bit the first class. If you're new to this, you're going to have to work on that. If you added, there are papers you don't yet have that you will have, keyboard charts with letters. So once again, I don't want to get bogged down in that. If there's something I'm saying that you don't have access to, just email me. So I'm going to move right to Song of Joy. Generally, when people get through Mary, Song of Joy is a little bit more fun to work on. So what do we have here? We have 2 lines of a longer piece. We're going to play right hand melody. A lot of these notes are the same, and the patterns are a little similar to Mary, but it's a different tune. We have some repeated notes. We have some notes that move a little differently. Let's listen to one line. I talked about the rhythm at the end of the line. When you re-listen to the other link, you'll learn more about that. And in the PowerPoints, I put some links to some older videos I made they're very short. They're focused. And that should make sense if you listen to that. Oh my gosh, there's some majorly noise out there. Sounds like a dinosaur is squawking. I think it's a truck backing up. Sorry. So the second line is almost the same. This is different. So I did more repetitions of this, talking about how you can break it down, how you can develop skills to learn, how you can develop practicing approaches. And if you missed that, you're probably going to need to go back and watch through some of that to get some ideas. Over the term, I will be talking about practice ideas, but I've talked about it here before. I want to get through these because I want to get to chords. I want to add some chords in so you can get started on that. I think I'm going to move to the Saints. I think I'm going to play the whole song one time with the left hand. Then I'm going to review the right hand part we did, and I'll go through the last part of that melody here. Here we go. Everything. I have to ask you guys, could you hear that squawking? Did anybody hear that? It was so incredibly loud. I had a hard time. I could hear it over my playing. Did anybody hear it or no? It was like squawk, squawk, squawk. And I'm there, what's going on? All right. And unfortunately, my windows are open. It's nice outside. And like during the summer, sometimes they'd mow the lawns at class time. If it ever would get like really distracting, I could close the windows. All right. I'm going to go through half of the melody like I did last class. And I think I'm just going to break this down a little bit. There's a part in the beginning that is going to repeat. Whenever you do something like you do something and then you do it again, you might just start by doing it once And rather than keeping on playing, kind of relax for a second and focus. Like, notice, does it sound right? The videos can help you with that. If you kind of know what your target is, the video sound can help you know, wait a minute, what I did not sound the same. So if it's good, do it again. Then you will put two of them together and practice. Everyone's going to have a different pace at which this gets easy for them. At the end of the line, it starts the same, but it's different. So that's where I stopped with this song last time. I had played the whole thing and then I kind of just focused on that half of the melody. I'm going to start right in the middle and play the melody to the end. So that is actually two lines of music or two musical phrases. Music has phrases just like sentences can have phrases, groups of words that hold together, and then there might be a comma or a period, that slight little break. So starting right in the middle again. That's one phrase. And when I teach this, I start with a little bit. People would try that and then try it and add more. Repeat that. So you would work step by step. You would start with a small amount that you think you have, do it until it feels easy, add a little bit more. Now, that being said, I'm going to see if I can figure out what time it is. Okay, I think, let's see, this was a 2 p.m. class. Since this clock says 11:23, I'm trying to figure out what time it really is. Okay, we're doing great with time. And as I said, I doubt this will go the whole class. But here's what I'm going to focus on now. How do you get started with chords? The PowerPoints I sent you, one of them has links to short videos of me demonstrating these. So they're not long like this. They're not 20 minutes, 30 minutes. They're just a minute, some maybe 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes. And I know you can't see my hands now. I'm going to talk through two of the chords. If you have this sheet in front of you, I pointed this out before, but on the right, I just kind of listed the letters and the chords. Once again, this is not how we really write music for professionals and when people are reading music. This is like a guideline, something so you don't forget. Let's talk about what a chord is. A chord is 3 or more notes that work together. I'm not going to go into that more than work together because that's a whole theory course. But the ones we start with, that's a C chord. They're going to sort of sound smooth and blend together. I could pick 3 notes, like, that's 3 notes. We could make a case for it being a chord in certain circumstances, but the kinds of chords we're going to use are harmonious. They make a harmony. There's some theory behind this. It involves knowing what the scale is and then knowing that in this case, for example, a C chord is 1, 3, and 5 of the C scale. The first 5 letters of the C scale are C, D, E, F, G, which is our C position. C position is part of the C scale. And if we take the first, the third, and the fifth, we get the chord. In the beginning of this class, though, it can be confusing because the chords are sometimes topsy-turvy. The word for that is inverted. You don't need to know these words. You're going to learn this by memorizing just a few chords in a certain way. The reality is there are countless ways you can play them. Down the road, I can play a C chord like this, and that's what you're going to be doing. But I could play a C chord with two hands. I could spread it out. I could kind of roll it. I could alternate. I could mix it up lots of different ways and it would still be a C chord. So the more you know and the further you get, you have many more variations you can do. It gives you possibilities to make it really interesting. But we're starting with a basic group. So most likely you're going to find that you're going to memorize it by how your hand looks, by the shape of your hand, maybe by how it sounds, and by remembering what the fingers are and what the notes are. So you're going to get started on this a little bit between now and Wednesday. So for C chord, what I like to tell people is if you take your left hand, your pinky is 5. If you skip one finger over to 3, the middle finger, and your thumb 5, 3, 1, that's the finger numbers. I mentioned a different kind of use of numbering for the chord 1, 3, 5. They're the same numbers, but they're used in different ways. I'm talking about finger numbers. In music, numbers are used a couple different ways, and it can be confusing. What I try to do is avoid using numbers when they're not needed until people have the basics. I just think that makes it easier. So what you will notice if you look at the keys, and I know you can't see this very well, if we start with a C, we skip over one, and we skip over one. Now, we're going to look at another chord. We're going to look at 2 in a little more detail, and I'm just going to give like the overview of one more. So that's 3 chords. We're going to focus on 2. The G chord is going to have a different shape. The reason for that, and you don't need to worry about knowing this, but there is a reason for it. It's inverted. It's kind of turned upside down like a somersault. It has 3 notes, a G, a B, and a D. But for now, we're not going to play it with the same shape as the C chord. You're going to play a B. You're going to skip to a D. Then you're going to have a bigger skip to a G. And the videos I made in the PowerPoints, they're very brief. And if you click that, you'll see it beautifully. Like you can make it big so you can very clearly see the notes. You can see what I'm doing and you can try it. Most people will have to repeat this a number of times over a few days till your hands start to remember where to go, especially now when the notes are new. Now, why are the shapes different? That's kind of a philosophical question, but in this case, they have a purpose. And the purpose is, in music, if I play these 2 chords they have a different shape. The fact that the shape is a little different gives us an advantage. It lets us very easy move from one to the other. It's smooth. So your hand eventually gets to the point where you can make a little movement and play another chord. Now, this is not the only way to do it. And the more you know, the more you will have choices. There may be musical reasons why you want it smooth, or there might be a musical reason why you don't want it smooth. I will give you a reason. A musical reason has to do with a style why you might not want it smooth. I will play you just a little bit. That's kind of hoppy. Here's another one. I suspect some of you may have already played this. I know every kid 7 or older has sat on the piano bench with their cousin or their neighbor and hack that out, and it's loads of fun. And you can keep it going for a long time. Heart and Soul. Heart and Soul is a song from the 50s, and the 50s is one style that happens to use, I'm trying to think of how to say this without using musical terms that won't make sense. Things kind of move in parallel. Everything is moving kind of together. Now, when we learn a C chord and a G like we're going to learn, everything is not moving parallel. That would be this. That's the same two chords, but the shape stays the same, and it's a bigger move. I am concerned I'm going to be losing lots of you because this won't make sense to beginners. My purpose for saying something about this is for you to understand there's a reason. So when you play these, you will need to play them a precise way. Your hand will have to work this out until it becomes automatic. Now, I said I was going to go over the C chord, the G chord, and I was going to mention the F chord. The F chord as well has a different shape. If we look at the lowest note in the C chord, we go skip, skip. In the G chord, lowest note goes down, next note goes down, top note stays the same. Now, if we look at the C chord again, what happens to make it the F? The top two go up. For G, the top, I said that wrong, the bottom two go down. But don't worry if this is like going right over your head or sounding hard, don't worry. It's really not. I'm showing you something, I'm telling you a little bit about why we're doing it one way, and I'm very well aware that it probably doesn't make sense to a lot of you. I don't want you to think I'm just arbitrarily saying you have to do it because I'm the teacher. There is a reason. Now, that being said, the last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to talk a little bit about getting two hands together. Many of you may not be able to do that. You might not even want to start, and that's absolutely fine. But let's consider this a preview. We'll focus more on this next class. Once you can do the chords and do the melody, the next step is going to be getting them together, and that involves two hands. I can't tell if you can see. Yeah, two hands doing different things at the same time, and it's going to freak your brain out if you haven't done this before. Unlike typing, where the two hands both wiggle, they each do one note at a time, and there's only ever one. With piano, it's multiple, and it's hands doing different things. So what I want you to know about that before we start is, unless you've played before, it's probably going to be hard. And it can be frustrating when, as an adult, you can listen to something and hear it simple, but when you try to do it, it feels hard. That can be really frustrating. So I just want to say that expect that. And the trick is stay calm, keep that peaceful Zen mind. Just try things. If it gets frustrating, go slower, take a break, do something else, answer an email, go back and do it again. What I'm going to do is demonstrate a couple ways we could try getting hands together in the beginning. This is not going to be a complete step-by-step. It's just going to be like, I'll give maybe 2 examples, maybe 3, who knows, of a couple ways we could get started, because I want you guys to learn that C and G chord. And if it goes well, try the F. I really will suggest go to those PowerPoints, and I think it's one of the ones for this week. I put in one, I believe, for last week, and this is week 2, and I believe I put 2, like a class 1 and a class 2. I also mentioned that the PowerPoints will not precisely overlap exactly what we're doing here. Every single class that I've taught for, 24, 25 years, it's never precisely exactly, because there's all these different variations. However, it's the same stuff. It might be that we do one chord on a Tuesday and one on a Thursday, something like that. Maybe we do 2 lines of a song instead of 3. But by the next class, it's all going to even out. So really watch those. They might give you a very good overview too before we do the Zoom class. I'm going to try to keep them up a little early. I might even put a couple weeks up because none of them is going to take too long to look at. It'll take longer if you click through to the links, but you can scan through those pretty quickly and get a sense of what's there and do what's appropriate. So the very first thing we would do would be try to get a little bit of Mary with 2 hands. So the approach we would have would be, we have to have the assumption you have already done the right hand. You've worked that out and it's comfortable. It may not be fast, and maybe you make a mistake sometimes, but the assumption is, and it has to be, that you've done it enough that it's mostly there. And you have to have done the chords. You need 2 chords to do this. You need a C and a G. You're going to need to do them individually, and you're going to need to try to change from one to the other. Let me mention something about the brain, which is kind of cool. Your brain is really connected to your hands. There are so many nerve impulses connecting, and there's a large area of your brain that's mapped to the hands. And what is so cool is when you do this with your hands, and like I said before, some of this new stuff is going to feel uncomfortable or frustrating because you want it to be perfect right away, and it's not likely to be. But when you repeat, what happens is, as your brain sorts this out, you lay down tracks, and those tracks will help you as you go along. You're always going to be stimulating nerves that go to your brain, and your brain just builds connections. There's something called the corpus callosum. Between the 2 hemispheres of the brain, the right and the left, there is this, like, wire's not the right word, and I'm sure a better word that I can't think of. It's a bundle of nerves, and it joins the 2, and that's how the right half can concentrate or communicate, I guess is what I mean to say, with the left. And when you stimulate things with your hands and do things together that you haven't done before, that forces the brains, each half, to talk to each other. It's kind of cool. It's kind of fascinating, to be honest. The point is, if you're not too interested in brain anatomy, the point is, as you do this, when it feels a little frustrating or a little boring because it's not going quicker, just keep in the back of your mind, as you build these skills, you're making connections in your brain that will stay there, and they will be there for you pretty much the rest of your life. There's a lot of research. Well, I shouldn't say a lot. There is research done on concert pianists. Years ago, I read some of this. It was fascinating. Concert pianists that were maybe in their 80s, and they found out that they didn't get dementia or Alzheimer's as much because they develop more brain cells. So play piano, you'll develop your brain cells. All right, we're back to, 2 chords, and the right hand. You're going to start very slow. This is Mary, 2 hands in part, trying to get the hands together. You want to press them down together. And for this song, we're going to hold the left hand down. Now, the first time you do it, it might be good, it might not be so good. If it's either good or not so good, just do it again. You might be ready to go on at that point too, or you might not. Do it until it feels comfortable. Then what I suggest is, when the chord is going to change, take a moment to mentally prepare. I call that a pause. So do what you can. At this point, you want to prepare both hands one at a time. Get your left hand ready for the next chord. Get your right hand, look at your finger, get it on the D, and when you're ready, move. Now, if you take that pause to be cautious and think through your move, you're more likely to be accurate. And then you want to do it again, pausing again. You're going to find that the second and the third time, you will know what to do sooner because your brain is going to start figuring this out. You would pause, get each hand ready, and when you feel ready, and you would do that until you feel it starts getting easy. At that point, you could move forward. So I'm going to do just one more move in this song. I'm going to assume I'm that beginner that's just getting started. I'm pausing, I'm thinking. I'm thinking of my hands one at a time. And if this is new to me, I get my left hand ready for the C chord and the right hand ready. Then I would repeat, repeat, repeat. I'm going to show just one more thing and then we're going to stop today. The very bottom of the page, we are going to use chords differently. I believe, I know I did this for you. I might have mentioned that we're going to do a pattern to create a little rhythm. I'm going to play you half the song. This is our goal. Okay, what do you need to do that much? You need to have worked out the right hand comfortably. Hold the G. These notes move slower. Hold the D.